Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be my wrap up for everything that I read in May. If you guys have been following me for a while, you'll know that I usually do my wrap ups in kind of a vlog style where I film a little clip every time I finish a book and then I put it all together into one, usually 45-minute video for you guys to watch, which you guys seem to enjoy and I really enjoy making. This month, in case you're not aware, I am co-hosting both Mental Health-a-thon and Books for the Brave. I'm vlogging for both of those readathons. At the time of filming this particular clip, I'm actually got a vlog running for each of those projects, and so the thought of doing little vlog clips for this as well didn't spark joy. So I thought long and hard about it, because the reason I stopped doing the kind of traditional sit down vlogs was because I felt like, because I was only sitting down at the end of the month and I read on average around 10 books a month, sometimes more, sometimes a bit less, I was forgetting things, and I feel like if I film soon after I finish reading, you get a more honest review and it's just, you get my real thoughts on what I've just read. So what I'm going to do for this month's wrap up is I'm going to film a clip every Monday to talk about the books that I have read in the previous weeks. So you should get, I think, 5 clips because it's a 5-week month, just to let you know what I've read that week, because that felt like a good balance between the two. So that is what we're doing. So the first book that I finished this month was Bodily Harm by Margaret Atwood. I am running a read-along of Margaret Atwood's fiction works. We're reading in publication order, and it's called What the Book Club Read, which I will link in the description. We've got a Twitter page, and I also mention it a little bit on my Instagram. And this is the 5th published book, given that it's May. This is book 5 that she published. So it's literary fiction. It's last of the very heavily literary fiction books that she published. We get in from next month forward, we get into more of the genre blending, which I absolutely adore. For me, this was a lot more successful than the other ones that we've read so far. I gave it 4 stars. We follow a young woman who is a travel writer, and she goes to a Caribbean island to basically do like a travel piece on, you know, hotels and restaurants and stuff. And she gets caught up in the local politics. And that's really all I can tell you. I also need to give a content warning for discussions of breast cancer, surgery and recovery, because the main character has just gone through that, and that's discussed quite a lot and quite openly, so just be aware of that going in case that could be a trigger. But yeah, I gave this 4 stars. For me, I'm a massive Atwood fan, obviously that's why I'm running the read along, and this is the first book that I've read of her early ones where I can see the author that she becomes later on, which is the author that I love so much. It's just there in like the turns of phrase and the characters, and just the messages that she's trying to get across. And yeah, I really enjoyed this. I know from seeing some of the feedback from the others in the book club, we have a discussion on the last Saturday of every month. So I haven't got everyone's feedback yet, but there's been some real mixed reviews. Some people are giving it 1 star, others giving it 4 stars. So it does seem to be kind of a Marmite book. I would say that the pacing is a bit slow, and she's not very good at endings, which is just part of her writing, I think. But I still very much enjoyed this, and for me it was kind of fun to catch a glimpse of the author that I love so much, and it's also one of the reasons why I've really enjoyed reading these in order, because you can see her progress. So yeah, that was the first book of the month. The second book of the month, which I've written down on a bit of paper because it was an audiobook, was The Radium Girls by Kate Moore. And I listened to that on Scribed. It was incredible. Let me just say that for a start. I gave it 5 stars. It's a non-fiction book about the women who in the early 1900s, I think it was like 1912 this starts, up until World War II, were called Radium Girls because they painted clock faces, and they used radium to do that. And because at the time it wasn't known that radium was lethal, because it's obviously a toxic radioactive substance, they would regularly like dip the paintbrushes in water, put that in their mouths, then dip it in radium, then put them in their mouths to point it to get a really fine point, and then paint onto the clock faces. I would say I gave it 5 stars, but I would put a warning on it because it's very visceral and it's very descriptive. It does not shy away from what happened to those women. It talks about how they started to develop symptoms. It talks about how they then all had, or a lot of them had, very prolonged, very painful illnesses and very slow deaths, and it's grim listening. It made me angry, it made me tearful, it did actually make me cry a couple of times, because she also then goes on to explain about how the various radium companies tried to get out of having to look after their staff or having to compensate their staff and pay medical bills, and also talks about how brave these women were to try and stand up to the corporations and also to the government, because the whole thing was just so corrupt and interwoven. And you know, quite a few times I was just thinking, God, how are these women, how are they going to be able to do anything? But it's an incredible story. It's a true story, obviously. The way it's written feels like fiction. The author, usually in non-fiction, you get kind of the author within the text, but Kate Moore is very removed from it and very much feels like, it feels like a narration of a fiction story, but it isn't. And it was really powerful, and it's definitely one of those that will stay with me for a very, very long time. It was on my TBR because my friend Kath, who I don't think is uploading anymore, but she did have a Booktube channel called KE Reads. She mentioned it ages ago, it must have been last year. And then also Amy Myers recently, I think, mentioned it as well, and it's on Scribd, so which I've got, so I picked it up and I just could not put it down. I was supposed to put it down to start my mental health fun audiobooks last week, but I couldn't. I had to keep going because I had to know what happened. And it's one of those books where I definitely feels like you're witnessing something that should be witnessed. Like, these women's stories should be known, but also not just them, but like their husbands and their families and the people around them who also went through this with them. I didn't know that much about radium, other than that it's obviously radioactive, like we know that now, but the opening, like the introduction, I found fascinating because Kate Moore talks about how radium was in everything. It was in, you know, it was thought to be this like wonder element, and people were so quick to use it without any kind of like safety checks or thoughts of how it might affect the body, because it was used in toothpaste, it was used in underwear, it was used in condoms, it was used in like face creams, and in milk. They put it into milk, and it blows your mind because obviously we have the benefit of hindsight, and I think probably the modern equivalent would be asbestos, which is obviously we now know is a highly carcinogenic material. So I found it fascinating. Like I said, it was fascinating and very emotional. But if you think you can handle it, I would highly recommend it. It's easily one of the best non-fiction books that I have ever read. Okay, and then the last book that I have read in the last week was one of my mental health fun reads, which is A Million Pieces of Neena Gill by Emma Smith-Barton. I have got a whole reading vlog for this, which I will put up here, so I won't talk about it too much here. You can go and watch that vlog if you'd like to. This was the group book that Nicole chose for Mental Health Fun, and it's a YA contemporary in which you follow Neena, who is a 15-year-old girl in the wake of her brother's disappearance. And that's probably all I'm going to say about it. It's got discussions around psychosis, that's the mental health rep that's in here, and also loss of a sibling, so those are the content warnings. I loved this. I gave it 5 stars. I flew through it. It was really easy to read, but Neena felt really real, which I feel like we need in YA contemporary fiction, especially with mental health rep in it. I just thought it was fantastically well done, and I absolutely loved it. And then, just before I finish this clip, I have had 2 very sweet book parcels this week. Obviously I'm running Books of the Brave, so I feel a bit weird about accepting gifts when I'm asking you guys to help us fundraise, so I will also be donating the cost of the books to the readathon, to the charity that we're donating to. But it was really sweet of these 2 people to send me these books. So Connor from Connor Booktube sent me The Apartment by K.L.Slater. I say this all the time because I put stuff on my wish list and then promptly forget all about it. I can't remember why this is on my wish list, but it's a thriller. Yeah, that's kind of all I know. Something about a man that's too good to be true and secrets behind a locked front door. It looks really good. I might pick it up in June because I suspect it'll be one that I will absolutely fly through. It's got a very cool cover. So yes, thank you for that, Connor. That was really sweet of you. And then my wonderful, beautiful friend Charlotte from Books and Bargains sent me A Heart So Fierce and Broken by Bridget Kemmerer because she saw that I really, really loved A Cursed, Dark and Lonely last month. And also she sent it because this channel reached 1,000 subscribers last week, which has absolutely blown my tiny mind. There will be a Q&A and a giveaway coming to say thank you properly, but that will be coming in June because May is just a bit mental all around. It's all just a bit, there's too much going on, so I want to be able to focus on it properly. But she was very sweet and she sent me this with a really lovely note inside it, and she's currently reading A Curse So Dark and Lonely, so if she enjoys this, hopefully we'll be able to buddy read this. Do I need to tell you what this is about? I don't really know. It's the sequel. A Curse So Dark and Lonely is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and this is the sequel, and I'm very excited, and it's really pretty. I love that green. And it's also got the shiny spine to match the first one, so that's very pleasing. So yeah, so those are all the books I've got to talk to you about right now. I'll be back in about 5 seconds for you with another clip about some more books that I read. It's Monday again, and so I've got a few books to talk to you about. I finished 3 books this week, and I've also got 2 books that I was very kindly sent as gifts from my lovely friends. So first of all, the books that I finished reading. The first of those was Brain on Fire by Susannah Cahalan. I read this as part of Mental Health Thorn. This was my... well, this could have covered off a few things, because this is non-fiction. It was Learn More. I think it's also the newest one, so if you can hear the trucks outside, we live on a new build estate, so it's always loud. Yeah, it was also Learn More. It's got a little bit of green on the cover. Does that count as green? Probably not. Yeah, so it covered off a lot of the prompts for Mental Health Thon, and it was also my most anticipated read of the readathon, and it really lived up to my expectations. So, as I said, this is non-fiction. This is the story of Susannah Cahalan, who was in her mid-20s, early 20s, living in New York, working as a journalist for the New York Post, and she started to develop some symptoms. She started to have seizures and blackouts. Her behaviour changed. She became physically aggressive. She eventually lost the ability to speak. Movement was very hard for her, and to start with, the doctors thought that she was exhibiting a mental breakdown and potentially had schizophrenia. The doctors at the hospital that she went to tried to put her on a psych ward, but her parents refused, and because they persisted, they eventually were able to get a different doctor to take a look at her, who found that she actually had a virus that was affecting her brain and was causing all of these symptoms. She doesn't remember the month that she spent in the hospital, and so this is part memoir and part almost like investigative journalism, because when she recovered, and she did recover, she then went back and basically looked at video footage of herself at the hospital, because she was put on a ward for epileptics. So there's actual video footage of her at the time when she was her most ill. So she went back and watched that, which must have been really hard and a weird thing to do. And she also, you know, interviewed her doctors and her parents and her friends and her boyfriend of the time, and basically pieced together what happened to her and the things that she did during that time. And I've given it 5 stars. I thought it was amazing. It's written beautifully. She's clearly a very skilled writer. The chapters are really short, and I absolutely just like flew through it. And I would really, really recommend it. I will put a content warning on it, obviously for discussions of mental health. Also, if you have kind of medical anxiety, you might want to go easy with this one. I have a little bit of that. It's not one of my main anxieties, but this obviously deals with the question of how many other people have been diagnosed with a mental illness who are actually dealing with a physical illness that could be treated. And that's quite a scary thought. And I think actually if this had been fiction, I probably would have found it a lot harder to read, but for some reason, I've said this in videos before, for some reason non-fiction books don't affect me as deeply in terms of triggering. So yeah, just go easy with this one, but I gave it 5 stars. I did also watch the Netflix film, because loads of people recommended that when I mentioned this in my TBR, and I really didn't like it. I gave this book 5 stars. I would give the film like 2 stars. It felt really rushed, and it missed out loads of really key things, and like it didn't at all go into her recovery, which is like probably half the book is her recovering. And that's sort of the point of the book, and I felt like it missed it, and it just sort of like just skipped over really important stuff. But the book I absolutely loved, and would really recommend it if you can handle the subject matter. So the next book that I read was an audiobook, and because my memory is so horrendous, I've put it on a post-it note down here to help me remember the title. So I read The Heartland by Nathan Filer, which is also called Finding and Losing Schizophrenia. I think it's also been retitled This Book Will Change Your Mind or something like that. I'll put it in the description, but I listened to it on Scribe and it came up as The Heartland. this again was for Mental Health-thon, and when I went into Mental Health-thon, when I was planning my TBR, I wanted to learn more about schizophrenia because it's not something I know very much about. I feel like it's one of those conditions that's really under, not underrepresented, well yeah, actually there's not a lot of representation that I've found in books, but also it's one of those that's got like loads of misconceptions, and I wanted to really like try and get a grip of, you know, what it's actually about. And obviously Brain on Fire looked at it from the point of view of someone who didn't have it but was almost diagnosed with it. There'll be another, in my next clip I'll be talking about The Stranger on the Bridge, which is by Jonny Benjamin, which is his experience of being diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder. And then Heartland by Nathan Filer really interested me because that came at it from a different angle altogether than the other two. Nathan was a mental health nurse who worked for years on wards with people who had schizophrenia and various other diagnoses, and in this book he basically talks to 6 people who have been affected by it in some way. Some of them have had it themselves, some of them have had children who have had it, some of them who've had partners or friends that have had it, and he looks at the different ways that it affects people in their lives, and he also looks at basically the ways that the health system is broken, and how people are treated. And I gave it that 5 stars. I thought it was really interesting. It's got kind of an undercurrent of like sarcasm, which as you will know if you watch my videos I respond to really well, which stops it being like too academic and dry, because it does get quite technical, and he does talk about you know, different medication options, all that kind of stuff, but I just found it had a lot of heart, and I learned a lot, and it gave a lot of different people's perspectives and voices, which I thought was really good. So I also gave that 5 stars. And then this has been a really good reading month. I think I've finished 6 books so far, and like 5 of them have been 5 stars. So good luck, future Victoria, trying to choose your book of the month. But I then also read Middlegame by Shaun and McGuire. This was my Books for the Brave pick for book that intimidates me. I picked it because of all the Booktube hype. Like, so many people love this book, plus it's massive, it's over 500 pages, and it's a sci-fi, so like, I don't really like big books, and sci-fi is not my genre, so this is why I was a bit scared of this. Massive thank you to Rachel from Rachel Marie for sending this to me. I won a giveaway on her channel a while ago. She saw this was on my wish list, which was only there because she just kept talking about it so much, and then she was kind enough to actually send it to me, so that was lovely. Thank you, Rachel. And I loved this. First of all, this cover, I'm in love with it. This book, we're getting a new bookcase hopefully by the end of the month, and this book is going to be face out for sure, although I do really like the ombre on the spine, but this is just so creepy. And once you've read the book, you'll know what this is about, and then it's extra creepy. If you've read this book, like, DM me, because I need to talk about this in particular. Yeah, I loved this. I've read the Way with Children series, obviously also by Shaun and McGuire, so I knew I liked her writing, but to go into a full-length novel when you've only read short stories from a author is always a bit scary. And this book is really hard to describe. So we've got a pair of twins called Roger and Dodger. Dodger is a girl, Roger is a boy. They are split up at birth. And that's all I'm going to say, because I think anything else would be spoilers. But this is weird, and I really liked it. It was like the right kind of weird for me. I think if you liked things like The Time Traveller's Wife, if you liked Life After Life by Kate Atkinson, I think you'd probably like this. It's definitely adult. I need to give content warnings for discussions around suicide, attempted suicide. There's quite a lot of bodily horror and violence, so it's not for the faint-hearted. But if you're looking for something creepy and weird, I would recommend this. I would also say the way the narrative is structured is also weird, but just strap in, get on the ride, and you'll love it, and it will soon all come into focus, because it does jump around a lot and you do have to pay attention. But just go with it, because trust me, it was worth it. So those are all the books that I've read this week, but I did also get sent 2 books by 2 of my lovely friends. As I said in the last clip, obviously I'm fundraising this month for Books of the Brave, who are fundraising for NHS Charities Together, and I feel a bit weird accepting gifts when I'm asking you guys to donate money, and I actually thought I'd removed my wish list from my social media, but clearly I haven't. I missed one somewhere. So any books that I've been gifted this month I will be totaling up, and then when I get paid at the end of next week I will be making an additional donation to NHS Charities Together. By that point the Books for the Brave thing will have closed, so I will just do that separately, but I just wanted to put that in because I feel a bit weird asking you guys to donate and then be like, look at all these presents I got. Anyway, my beautiful friend Nicole from Beautiful Kessa Books sent me A Killer's Mind by Mike Omer, and this was to celebrate the fact that my channel reached 1,000 subscribers, and she just put this lovely note in, and thank you, Nicole. You are one of my favourite people, and you are definitely one of the big reasons why my channel has gone anywhere, so thank you very much. This, right, I say this every time somebody sends me a book from my wish list. I can't remember why I put this on my wish list, but it's a thriller, and literally the first line of the synopsis on the back is 3 Chicago women have been found strangled, embalmed and posed as if still alive. I'm in. That's all I need to know. I'm definitely going to read this soon. I'm really excited for it. Have I read anything by Mike Omer? I don't feel like I have. But it's nearly 400 pages, but text is pretty big. So yeah, I'm definitely reading this soon. Thank you very much, Nicole. And then the lovely, lovely Cat from Brews and Reviews surprised me with It's Not Okay to Feel Blue and Other Lies, which is created by Scarlett Curtis. I absolutely adored Feminists Don't Wear Pink and Other Lies, which is the other Scarlett Curtis collection. This is a mental health one, and it's got all kinds of people in it. Adam Kay, who else? Davina McCall, Dorno Porter, Emma Thompson, Fern Cotton. Just like skimming down to see if I can find more people that I actually know who they are, because I'm terrible at knowing who people are. Miranda Hart, Naomi Campbell, who else do I know on here? Scarlett Curtis herself, Scarlett Moffat. It's going to be really good. I probably won't be reading this month because I've been reading so much mental health stuff, obviously for Mental Health Fun, but I feel like this is one I can dip in and out of, so maybe in like July, once my brain's recovered slightly from all the mental health books. But Kat, thank you so much. And again, I think this was to celebrate, yes, yeah, she said, congratulations on reaching 1,000 subscribers, so well deserved. I can't wait to watch you gain thousands more. That might be a bit ambitious, but thanks anyway, from Kat. So yeah, thank you so much, Kat. You are a lovely human. And those are all the books I got to talk about just now, and I'll see you in a second when I've read some more. It's the 25th of May, which means it's the bank holiday weekend here in the UK, and that is why I'm still in my pyjamas. I also haven't been very well this weekend, which is why I look like an egg, but we're going to go with it anyway because I have got 5 books to talk to you about. I finished 5 books this week, which I'm really, really, really pleased with. So the first book was This Is Going to Hurt by Adam Kay. This is very kindly gifted to me by my lovely friend Charlotte from Books and Bargains. This was the 3rd time I've read this. Charlotte actually sent this to me because I mentioned that I didn't own a copy. The first time I read it via the library, and then the second time I read it via audiobook, and I would really, really, really recommend the audiobook because Adam Kay narrates it. This is his stories, basically. It's non-fiction about his time as a junior doctor, and like I said, this is the 3rd time I've read this. I will continue to reread this probably every year because it's funny and it's dark and it's heartfelt and it's shocking, and it's just easily one of the best non-fictions I've ever read. If you're looking to get into non-fiction and you're not sure where to start, I would really recommend that you pick this up. Although I do need to give content warnings for abortion, for loss of a baby, for what else is in here. There's some very like graphic descriptions of the medical procedures that he performed, and he did work on the obs and gynae ward, so just be aware of that going in. But yeah, this is a brilliant book and an easy 5 stars, and I had a really great time. I kind of needed it to break up. I did count this for my mental health-a-thon reads because it's about his mental health as well, and there's also some discussions in here of psychiatric patients that he came across. But I needed it to kind of break up my mental health on reads because the other ones I've been reading have been quite heavy, and there are parts of this that are also quite heavy, and it did make me tear up a couple of times, but overall he's just so witty that it kind of carries you through, and it was exactly what I needed. So next, talking of heavy mental health fun books, was The Stranger on the Bridge by Jonny Benjamin. I will link my vlog for this up here if I've got any links left. If not, everything will be linked in the description as always. This is again a mental health non-fiction book in which Jonny Benjamin talks about how he went from being suicidal to learning to live with his diagnosis of schizoaffective disorder. This is very, very raw, as I said about a million times in that vlog. So just be careful going in. You need to give content warnings also for obviously discussions of mental health and mental illness, discussions of suicide, also eating disorders. Yeah, this one I wouldn't recommend if you're not in quite a strong mental place yourself, because this really gets into it. I thought it was wonderful. I also gave it 5 stars, but it's quite tough going, and yeah, there's a whole vlog, so I won't repeat myself here. Go and check that out. But yeah, I gave it 5 stars. Just be careful picking this one up. Then I also read another mental health film book, which is The 5 Stages of Brawley by Shaun David Hutchinson. This one and this one and the next book I'm going to talk about were all in my 12-hour reading challenge, which I will also link below. This is a YA contemporary mental health book. Well, it's a YA contemporary with mental health aspects to it, and we're basically following a young man who is living in hospital following the deaths of his entire family, and he is living with survivor's guilt, and he basically lives in like an abandoned part of the hospital, and he works in the cafeteria and like goes to visit, you know, sick teenagers on the kids ward, and it's about his life within the hospital. And then one day a boy called Rusty is brought in, and Rusty has been set on fire, and it's about their friendship and their eventual romance, which was so nice. And it's also about our main character kind of coming to terms with what's happened to him and the role that he played in it. And I thought it was wonderful. I mean, bits of this made me cry. He also writes graphic novels, and there's like sections of the book that are like in that kind of style, which I thought was really cool. Yeah, this again was quite tough going, and content warning for discussions of suicide, also for cancer, and grief. But I thought it was beautifully done, and I will definitely read more from this author. Next up, I finished a series I've been talking about for ages on my channel, and that's Tombland by CJ Sansom. This is the last published book at the moment, hopefully, in the Matthew Shardlake series. This is thick. She is a big girl. How many pages are you? 866 pages. And I gave it 5 stars. I freaking love it. This is the Matthew Shardlake series, which is set in Tudor London. The first book starts just after Anne Boleyn has been beheaded, and in this book we're in the reign of King Edward, who's Henry VIII's son, and we follow Matthew Shardlake, who is a lawyer, but he also is kind of a detective. In those days that wasn't a job role, and lawyers would quite often look into cases, and he gets involved in a murder case of one of the upper class, and it kind of goes from there, and I don't want to like give it away. I loved this. I thought it was wonderful. I would read so many more in these series. I hope there are more coming. I just love the characters. I love the setting. It's really modern, the way it's written. Don't be put off by this at all. This took me a while to read, but it's only because I put it down to read my mental health on TBR, and I've sort of been chipping away at this on the side as well. But yeah, I absolutely adored it. I love this cover, and I'm now like really excited to go and put this downstairs with the sisters on the shelf. Yeah, easily like one of my favourite series of all time, and I'm really sad there aren't any more at the moment, so I'm going to be keeping an eagle eye out for when the next one comes, because surely there are going to be more, right? And then the last book that I've read this week was a reread. So we had a bank holiday this weekend, as I mentioned, and I woke up on Saturday and I was just feeling a bit low. I lost my voice at the end of last week. I've not been physically that well, and I think it's just a combination of everything that's going on at the moment. Like, the world's gone completely mad, and there's just a lot going on, and I've been really lucky that I haven't been furloughed, so I've been working full time, but that's also been super stressful because we're working with like far less people with a lot more pressure, and then adding homeschooling and you know, running 2 readathons this month and all that kind of stuff. I think it just caught up with me a bit on Saturday. I already had 4 books on the go, but I just didn't feel like reading any of them, so I was kind of looking at my shelves and I was like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to crack out the illustrated Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone A Boy. Was this a good choice? I think for me and my mental health, I think I've mentioned this before, like there are certain things that I will save for when I'm having a brain wobble. So things like Queer Eye, the Netflix show, I always save those for when I just really, really need something gentle and nice to watch. And these are going to be the same. Like The Temptation, I'm really lucky in that I've got the first 3 Harry Potters in illustrated format. And I'm planning on buying myself Goblet of Fire at the end of this month when I get paid. And I'm really, really lucky to have them. And the temptation to go straight on to the next one was really, really high. But I think I'm going to save these for like basically like rainy days. And I will say when these first came out, I was really skeptical because I was a bit like, oh, they're just trying to make more money out of the franchise, and you know, is it going to really add anything? And then I sat down with this on Saturday. I read it in 2 sittings and it was just amazing. And yes, the illustrations add to it. I was literally flipping pages and gasping out loud. And I'm not going to show loads because I don't want to give like spoilers. But I will just show you this one because this is Harry under the stairs. And it just really brought it home to me, like what it would actually be like to live under the stairs. So yeah, it was absolutely fantastic. Definitely a 5-star. I mean, I think for me, like the story, like the Philosopher's Stone story is probably more of a 4-star for me because it's just kind of setting up the world. But with the illustrations as well, it was definitely a 5-star reading experience and one that I would really, really recommend if you can. So yeah, thoroughly enjoyed that. And then I've been very lucky again this week because I have been gifted 5 books from people, which is just so lovely. And like I've said in all the clips this month, I'm going to work out the value of them and then I will donate that to NHS charities together at the end of the month. But yeah, I've been sent 5 books, which is just like so nice, you guys. The first one came from my little brother. I say little brother, he's like 6'3", but my younger brother sent me A Place of Greater Safety by Hilary Mantel, along with a really nice note. Basically, yeah, I'll just read it to you. He said, "Congratulations on 1,000 subscribers, that's amazing. Here's a subscriber page, well, nearly. Don't feel obliged to read this, I know you're busy, but this is probably my favourite Mantel book. Well done again, love from Ben," which is really sweet. And he's not kidding, because this thing, like, I was just talking about Tombland, and like, yeah. So I know literally nothing about this at all. How many pages is this? 872. So yeah, a bit like Tombland, this will be a project book, I think. But I think it's set in France. Yeah, 1789 as revolution sweeps through France. Okay. So yeah, that's going to be historical French fiction. I know nothing about French history at all, so that'll be interesting. Oh man, the text is really small on the page. I will say now, I struggle a little bit with Hilary Mantel. She's one of my brother's favourite authors. And I've read Wolf Hall and Bring Up the Bodies and thought they were both great, but I did kind of find them a little bit of a slog because it's definitely literary historical fiction with her. But I will definitely give this a go soon, maybe in August. I think I'm going to have some time off in August, hopefully. So I'll probably crack this out then. So yeah, thank you, Ben, and your note really made me smile. I was then sent Social Creature by Tara Isabel Burton, and that was sent to me by the lovely Laura from What Everyone Else Is Reading, and I'm really excited for this because it looks like it's going to be sort of a dystopian-ish, like Mean Girls, I think. This was obviously on my wish list, and as I keep saying, I put stuff on there and then I forget all about it. But thank you, Laura, so much for sending me that. She also sent me a really nice note which I've tucked inside. This I will be getting to soon because this looks really fun. Yeah, so I guess we'll find out together what that's about. And then the lovely Amy from Amy Myers sent me the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix, and I am so excited for this. And she's such a sweetheart, Amy, because she messaged me on Twitter and said that she sent me a book and she wasn't sure if it had arrived yet, and so she had to tell me what it was, and it hadn't arrived. And she was going to contact Amazon to see where it was, and then the next day it came through in the post, and I'm so excited for this. I've seen her talk about it, Harriet's talked about it from Harriet Rosie Reads, and I think also, I want to say Olive from the book Olive, and April from Getting Hooker with It. I think I've seen them talk about it, but also my friend Gill, who's on Bookstagram, who I'll link in the description. I know that she's talked about this and loved it, and I don't know all that much about it except it's about a book club and vampires and people whose opinions I respect are really excited. I've really enjoyed it, so I am in. I'm going to be reading this in June. You can see there, that's my TBR ready to go up on my shelf once I film this video, because I want to include this one. Also, I love this cover, but then when you take the dust jacket off, like, it's this stunning green colour, and it's got like the public library stamp. Like, I'm so into this, and I really also like the oh, there's the note for me. I really like peachy inside, so yeah, I am thrilled with that, so thank you, Amy. I like squealed when I opened it. And I'm going to be reading that soon. And then 2 more books. Both of these came from the same person, which is the lovely Marianne from a couple of books. And she sent me The Method by Shannon Kirk and The 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield. So The Method is one I haven't read, and I will probably be picking this up soon. But this is basically about, I think it's a 16-year-old girl who's pregnant and she's been kidnapped, but they thought she was a victim, but they're the ones in danger. What happens when the victim is just as dangerous as the captors? I'm so into this. I love it when you get a thriller that like flips it on its head. And yes, I'm really excited to pick that up. And then I also, as I said, she sent me 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield, which I have read, but I read it years ago, like when it first came out. And I don't own a copy. And this is beautiful. Like, look at the keys. Oh. But this is historical fiction, like a historical family saga mystery thing, I think, and I can't remember how it ends, but it's one of the first books I remember gasping out loud when I got to the twist, so I'm very excited to get to this, so thank you very much for that, Marianne. So yeah, those were the books I got to talk to you about right now. The next clip will be what I'm reading in the coming week for me, and also the wrap up for the wrap up, so I'll see you in a second. Okay, it's 31st of May, so it's time to finish this wrap up. I have got 6 more books that I've managed to read this week that I want to talk to you about, and also 3 books that I was very kindly gifted. So I'm going to do that, and then we'll do the stats, and that'll be it for this month, which I can't believe how quickly it's gone. I'm really sorry if you can hear background noise. It's about 1 billion degrees here, and if I try and film this clip without the windows open, I will probably die, so you can probably hear my neighbours in their gardens. So the first book that I finished this week was The Apartment by K.L.Slater, which was very kindly gifted to me by Connor, and I think he gifted this to me this month, I think, so you might have seen it in an earlier clip. But I was just looking for something to break up my mental health on reads, because it was getting a little bit tough in my brain and I just needed something kind of easy to read, so I picked this up. It was on my wish list because Nicole had given it 5 stars and really enjoyed it, and that's usually a good sign for me that I will also enjoy it. So in this we follow a woman who's got a small child, a small daughter, and following the death of her husband, they need somewhere to move to quickly, and she's approached in a cafe by a guy who says, oh, I've got this great apartment, you can come and live here, really cheap rent, just come in, it's fine, we're just looking to help people. So she moves into this apartment, and that is all I can tell you because it goes from there. It is a thriller. It was a really quick read. It's quite short. It's less than, yeah, it's 260 pages, so less than 300 pages. I enjoyed it. I gave it 3 stars. I didn't love it. It was very creepy and I liked the first half, but I felt like the end was really rushed and we were just kind of expected to take this massive leap and I wasn't quite there. So I did definitely enjoy reading it. And if you're looking for like an easy thriller that's like not too scary, like I think it'd be quite good for a beginner, it's not gory or anything like that, this will be a good one. And thank you again, Connor, for sending that to me. So that was that book. I finished The Descent by Tim Johnston, and if you saw my 12-hour reading challenge, which I will link in the description, you will have seen that I started this. This was also gifted. This was sent by the lovely Chloe from Chloe Reads Books. I really didn't like this one. It was almost my first DNF of the year. I've given it 2 stars in the end because sections of it I liked, but this follows the story of a family whose teenage daughter goes missing. Basically the family goes to the mountains for a holiday. Their teenage son and daughter go for a run one morning, and only the son comes back, and the daughter is abducted, and it then follows, it splits off from there, and it basically follows each of the family members after the event. And I really liked that premise, and I really wanted to like this, but I just got really bored. I found myself skim reading passages, and I thought the end was good, but again I just didn't connect with it, and Yeah, it was a 2-star for me. It's definitely a very literary thriller. So if you're into literary fiction, and you maybe want to try something that's a bit more, it's not really a thriller, it's more of like a mystery, then I would try this. But if you're into like straightforward thrillers, I would probably give this one a skip because I got really bored. I then was gifted a book and read it all in the space of like 12 hours. I was sent The Prison Doctor by Dr. Amanda Brown. This came from Amazon, but there was no note. So if it was you who gifted this to me, please let me know so I can thank you properly. I literally got this. This was waiting for me when I came downstairs from work. And I was so intrigued to read it, I just picked it up and read it straight away. I haven't done that for ages. And then I read it all in one sitting, which again is something I haven't done for ages. So whoever sent me this, thank you very much, because my brain loved that and really needed it. So thank you. This is a non-fiction memoir, a little bit like This Is Gonna Hurt by Adam Kay, in that it's an insider professional who is talking to us about their work in life. This was obviously Dr. Amanda Brown. She was a GP who decided to leave her practice and join the prison service, and this is basically her story of what happened and the people that she met and the things that she came across. I absolutely love this. I gave it 4 stars, and the only reason it wasn't a 5 is because I felt like it was a tiny bit surface. Like I wanted to go deeper and know a bit more about how she felt about things, and I wanted like more stories of the people that she met along the way. But I did really, really enjoy this. If you're thinking about picking it up, please do. Although this has got a content warning on it for lots of things. Obviously, given what the subject matter, it was always going to be quite tough in places. But there are discussions of rape, sexual assault, child abuse, suicide, self-harm. It's very raw and very real. She doesn't gloss over anything, so just be aware of that going in. But if you can handle those topics, I would really recommend this because this was fab. I then read, I got my little note here, then read on audiobook via Scribd, I read Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. This was Simone's host pick for Mental Health Thon, and it was a reread for me. I read it physically when it first came out, but decided to pick it up on audiobook. Absolutely loved the audiobook. It was fantastic. So if you're thinking about reading this, I would really recommend that route. The narrator was brilliant, and she really, really brought Eleanor and all of the other characters to life. This is an adult contemporary, probably is the genre, where we follow Eleanor's life, and she has some difficulties in her life, and she is very stuck in her routine, and she feels very safe in her routine, and she doesn't really like dealing with other people, but she's also very lonely. It's very much a book about loneliness, and something happens and it forces her basically to engage with the world, and then it's about what happens from there. And I thought it was wonderful. I gave it 5 stars last time I read it. It was a 5-star read again. I've written on my bit of paper, there are content warnings for suicide, self-harm, child abuse, rape and sexual assault, so please, again, just be careful if you decide to pick it up. But if you are able to handle those topics, it's such a brilliant book. It broke my heart and it made me happy, and Eleanor Oliphant is just one of those characters that you just want to wrap up in a massive hug. So yeah, I would highly recommend that. And then I got 2 more books to talk about. The next book was It's Not Okay to Feel Blue and Other Lies, which is created by Scarlett Curtis. This was gifted to me this month by my lovely friend Kat, so you'll have seen this in a previous clip. I decided to add this into my mental health fun TBR, and it's basically a collection of essays from various different people, all about mental health and their stories and how they cope with it. And yeah, I thought it was great. I've given it 3 out of 5 stars, which might be slightly controversial, but for me, as someone who reads a lot of mental health non-fiction, this felt a bit repetitive, and I don't think I personally got anything out of it, but obviously that doesn't mean that it doesn't have value, and I think it's a very valuable book, and I think it's definitely be a good resource for younger people or people who aren't used to reading about mental health. And yeah, it's a very important book. It just wasn't quite for me, but that's fine. Not everything has to be. But if you are thinking about picking this up, I would highly recommend it. There's a whole bunch of content warnings, but what I really liked is that, let me see if I can find one, probably can't now, is on certain essays, there's a content warning at the start as to what's contained within it, obviously. I can't find one now, but I thought that was really good, so that you kind of know what you're going into when you start to read that essay, and you can always skip that one, obviously, if it's going to affect you. So yeah, that was my thought on that. I didn't love it. I loved Feminist Don't Wear Pink a lot more, but I still see the value of this and I would still highly recommend it. And then my last read of the month was such a surprise. So my brother gifted me this, which is The Wreath by Sigrid Unset. Hopefully I said that right. Look at this beautiful cover. He gifted me this for Christmas, and when I opened it I was a bit like, oh, okay. Because, oh, I'm gonna have to move. Hang on a second. Ooh. Because this looked really hard. I thought this was going to be really hard work. This is my classic for the month, and in it we follow a girl called Kristen. This is the start of a trilogy, and this goes from her childhood up until she's, I think, about 20 at the end of this book, and we're just following her life. It's set in, is it Danish or, oh boy, I've literally just finished reading this. Where are we? Yeah, I think it's Danish, and it's set in the 14th century, and we're just following her life. No, it's not, it's set in Norway, sorry. We're just following her life and her coming to terms with herself and discovering her sexuality, and trying to make a decision on if she wants to get married or if she wants to be a nun, and just all her kind of family trials and tribulations. I thought it was brilliant. I've given it 4 stars. It's beautifully written. It's really, really like beautifully written. The nature writing in it is fabulous, and I will definitely be looking for the second one in the trilogy because I just really enjoyed it and I was really on Kristen's side. And yeah, it was definitely like my surprise read of the month, I think. The only reason I didn't give it 5 stars is because the pace was a little bit off, but it's a classic, and you know, it's not gonna have a modern pace to it, but I still thoroughly enjoyed it. So yeah, that was a nice surprise at the end of the month. And then speaking of surprises, I bought these 2 myself. I've already talked about the book that I was gifted, which was The Prison Doctor. And then at the end of the month, on payday, I decided to treat myself to 2 books. The first of which is The Diviners by Libba Bray. This is for Chloe's book club. This is the pick for July, so I'm very, very excited to be joining in with this. I have read Beauty Queens by Libba Bray. Read that, I think, earlier this year or end of last year. Absolutely loved that. This is very, very different, but I loved the writing so much. I was like, yeah, when Chloe announced that this was the pick for July, I was like, yeah, I'll join in. I don't even really know what this is about. I think it's set in New York in like the 1930s or 40s or something, and something dark and evil has awakened, so I don't really want to know much more about it. But yeah, I have picked that up for July. And then I said at the start of May that if I made all of the content that I was planning for in May and kept up with everything else that I was supposed to be doing, I would treat myself to the illustrated edition of Goblet of Fire, which obviously I have. So I'm very happy to have this. I've now got all of the ones that are available. And so at some point I will treat myself to sitting down and reading this because it's just absolutely glorious. So those were the books that I read in May. Let's do the stats. Oh, hang on a second. Trying to do this in the corner of my bedroom is difficult. So, stats. I read a lot. I read 17 books, which is 6,301 pages, which averages out at 204 pages a day, which is a lot. I haven't read that much in a month for quite a while, so I'm really pleased with that. And then also my average star rating was 4.11, which was really good because it means that not only have I had a great month in terms of volume, but obviously the quality, which is what I'm after, has been really high. In terms of ratings, I didn't DNF or give any 1 stars. I gave 1 2-star, I gave 2 3-stars, I gave 4 4-stars, and then 10 5-star reads. So these are the books that I gave 5 stars to, along with 2 audiobooks. Ooh. So a real mix of stuff there. And it's making it very difficult for me to choose my favourite read of the month. I've discounted the ones that were rereads, which was This Is Going to Hurt and Chamber of Secrets. And then, yeah, the one that I've chosen is the one that I think will stay with me the longest, and that is Brain on Fire by Susannah Cahalan. I absolutely loved this book, and it's definitely my read of the month. I'm really grateful that I picked this up for Mental Health-a-thon, so thank you, Nicole, for pointing me in this direction. I just think it was a really powerful book and really interesting, and yeah, this is going to be my book of the month. So leave me a comment down below with your book of the month. How has your May been? Mine has been very busy, but as always, books and Booktube have helped get me through. Yeah, leave me a comment with your favourite read of the month. Have you read any of these? Of the books that I've been gifted, which one should I pick up next? And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks guys, bye!